I'm co-host James Ash.
And I'm co-host Phil Scaife.
Welcome to the Business Lockdown. Welcome to the Business Lockdown. Leon McQuade. Leon, it's a pleasure to have you here today. Leon runs Think Cloud, which is an IT support cyber security business, and we're going to delve into that, his business background leading up to that, to modern day. What we're really interested in on delving into and finding out a lot more about today is Andy's Man Club, the role that Leon plays with Andy's Man Club, the fastest growing mental health charity in the UK. Should we just give him a round of applause at this stage? That is absolutely.
For all the guys
Absolutely, hugely. It's a pleasure to have you here today. Welcome to the Business Lockdown.
Yeah, welcome to the show, Leon.
Thanks.
Well, we're not going to mess about. I've got a T-shirt on today that says "Keep it real," and let's not mess about. Let's go straight into it. Let's talk suicide. Tell us, Leon, you've got great insight. Your journey into Andy's Man Club. Give us some of the clear, hard-hitting statistics within the UK that you can share with our audience, and what you guys are doing at the forefront of that.
Yeah, well, it's super simple, and when you guys hear these stats, it's simple and harrowing. And the stats really simple. So 1 man every 2 hours in the UK takes their own life, right? So just stop and think about that for a second. Compound that again, and we're all passionate. Hull's a great city. Our region's a great city. This region's got a 40% higher average than the national, right? So it's even higher than that, right? So when you start stopping and thinking about that, and you ask a real simple question, what are people doing? What's happening out there to do it? Not a lot's happening. So in a real simple stance, Andy's Man Club's mission is super, super simple. Andy tragically took his own life and died by suicide. And it was set up around the devastation that a suicide brings towards a family. A family just devastated. And Luke Ambler, who's our chair and who founded it with Andy's mum, talks about a real harrowing story where he had to go tell his son that his uncle Andy had tragically taken his own life. And he always talks about the scream that, that his son gave out, and he never wanted any family to experience it. So for me, taking that mission on and dipping, getting involved in Andy's Man Club, when you hear stats like that and you see things like that, and off camera, James and me and you can talk forever, and I'm sure Phil, you'll be the same. Is when you buy into a vision and you love that vision, and ultimately it's helping save someone's life, it becomes addictive, and it becomes a passion. It becomes more of a mission. And I think we've looked at it over the stats, and it's super, super simple what's going on, but no one's talking about it, and that's why I love having getting you guys coming on your show so we can talk about it. But these 3 stigmas, men are fear of weakness, burden, and embarrassment, and that's why they don't talk, and that's the stats with it. And we have a real simple aim and message where we have a club on a Monday night that meets for 1 hour, 1.5 hours. We're still going digital, so we took it digital now, thankfully. And like Hull, for example, when we set up Hull, it was getting 6 people turned up, and we've gone to 80 people turned up on a Monday. So there's just a massive need for it out there.
How many years is that? How many years ago did it?
3 years. So we went from 3 clubs to 25 clubs we've got now. We went from, just in a year, we went from helping 250 men on a Monday night to over 1,000. And then I was just having a trustee meeting signing this year off. We've helped over, I think just under 27,000 men last year we helped. And bearing in mind, we've only got 2 paid. It's a real weird business in terms of, we're all running businesses and we look at things as, operational, and we need things, but we've got a real unique model in terms of we want any pound that gets generated won't pay for staff. We just refuse. But that presents loads of challenges, and I'll run that charity. But it's all about helping that 1 man and making sure that what we do at, say, Hull or Halifax or Scotland, we've got the same experience no matter where we go. And that's what we're doing. So
impressive.
So is there a trigger point then, or is someone referred over to your Monday night club?
Well, the thing is, we do it all through social media and word of mouth marketing, so people know about us. It's more like I was talking to you, James, previously, and it's a bit like I've been into personal development for quite some years, you know, from business. And when you're in a business, it's quite cool to have a business coach or a, you know, a life coach, and we talk to these people, right? But for me, it's all about what are we do. You know, we all go to the gym on a you know, first week back in January, and we're all pumping weights to get our bodies, you know, physically strong. But when we really ask ourselves a real simple question, what are we doing to make ourselves better mentally? You know, what are we doing for our mental well-being? And we don't have them skills, unfortunately.
Hmm. And you said you've gone nationwide now, and you touched on there that the money doesn't go to staff, and there's been some challenges there within that. And I've been privy to a number of charities in the past. Now, I know people around me that have got involved with charities, and they go in for really good intentions, but they think that because everybody's in it for the right reason and wants to make a positive impact, it'll just be really relaxed. And actually, there's as much of a need to set up structure and systems and accountability in place with a charity as there is as a business. You know, how have you found that within the development?
An interesting, great question, James. And that's how you'll see now I'm a trustee. And the reason I got involved in Andy's Man Club, to sort of story, is I'd always played rugby. Hull's a very rugby town. You know, you've had Martin Johnson on your show. You know, played against him a few times. Could never catch him. You know, I might catch him now. He's a bit older. But, but Hull's a very, you know, working town. We're very into rugby, aren't we? And I don't know if you've seen, but there's a lot of high-profile rugby league players who have tragically taken their own lives over the years. It has been a challenge in that sort of sport. But also more than that, my own rugby coach from up at West Hull, Roy Bennett, from being 17, 18, and I retired in my 30s, I'm 38 now, he tragically took his own life, you know, and our rugby captain, Benno, you know, is his dad, and it was just it was the first time I'd ever heard of Andy's Man Club at that point, because we put like a boxing show on to raise some money, and at that point, that was when I first started to discover about mental health. Paul, we've got our own podcast, the Pig Wrestling Podcast, Paul runs that with me, and we started doing that because he runs Andy's Man Club now, and it's all about the first person coming on a bit of a journey, being vulnerable. And I think when you're vulnerable and you put your hand up a bit like on a rugby field and you say that I haven't got the world figured out, it's one of the most strongest things I think you can do. I think vulnerability, it's just, you know, when you put your hand up, and I think community, there is people there who will help you get out of them spaces. So I think the big challenge, and back to the bit about me being a trustee, I originally got involved because I was involved in a construction company which was going well. You know, I was working globally with some global brands. And what I was seeing quite a bit was on the appraisals, these guys were working away for a long time. On the appraisals, there was a lot of people who, the goals want, you know, they want to spend more time with the family. There's something around well-being that just didn't seem right on these appraisals that I was doing. There was people getting signed off for mental health, you know, we had 130 staff. And back then, you know, and this isn't just in that business, it's every business. When you'd speak to HR or you'd get external consultancy or you'd speak to somebody, it was sort of like the taboo, like you don't really, you send them to the doctors, send someone to the doctors, you don't talk about it, you don't call it out. And that's even more prevalent now. The NHS have only just started to bring a campaign out called Talk Suicide, where actually, statistically, you do call it out and you do go for it that way. So I think that was like a big change in culture, and I don't know what you guys think about that. You know, it is okay to talk now, but you know, only 3 years ago it wasn't. Would you say that, James?
Well, we spoke the other day the fact that the heavyweight champion of the world, and you know, boxing heavyweight champion of the world, Tyson Fury, is not only open about it, but he's on the front foot and taking pretty much any opportunity he can to speak positively to an audience about his struggles. What did he say? If that means that one person doesn't take their life, like resonates or connects in a positive way with someone who's struggling, then it's worth it. And that's 10 years ago. That you spoke about 3 years ago. 10 years ago certainly wouldn't have been the case itself. And I know Phil and I have run many businesses over the years, and we know we've got a large network of people that we know in business owners, entrepreneurs, and you know. This is an issue. It is an issue, you know, and it seems to be now, certainly you look at social media now and people are talking about anxiety and depression and linking in with, you know, with hashtag themes that are putting out there to bring people together. And That's great as well. Under normal circumstances, we've seen that come through, and that's great. But there's a big thing yesterday. I was speaking with Martin about it. We spoke with Martin, and we mentioned there. And although under normal circumstances, connecting digitally, it can be a really positive thing. But under the current climate, it seems to be 99% of the connections we're having. And although we might be connecting with more people now because we can log on and log off, and we've got more available time, actually the physical contact is has deteriorated massively. And how are you picking up on that with your network within Andy's Man Club and further afield? Increased digital connections, great, but a lack of that physical contact. What impact are you experiencing with that?
I think it's just like, we have a real simple message at Andy's Man Club. Make sure that everything's real and raw, and that's it. And like your T-shirt says, and just call it out. At the end of the day, we can't be a physical club where you can sit and you can actually have a deep and meaningful conversation. Us three guys, it's a challenge, making sure that we can get everyone to speak without speaking over each other. It's also a challenge, and it's scientifically proven. We're seeing this with the IT, what we do. More people are getting meeting fatigue, and you might laugh at that, but when you look at the psychology behind that, at the minute, I've got Phil just staring at me, just completely staring at me. I've got you just staring at me, right? It's not normal within a meeting environment, right? So you've got people's eyes on you for 15, 20 minutes, just piercing you. Like, psychological wise, we're not wired for people to stare at us. What would happen if we was in a pub and Phil was staring at me like he's just been staring at me for the last 10 minutes? What would happen, Phil?
I don't think we'd call it meeting fatigue. I think there'd be some fatigue in the car park or something, wouldn't there? But this phrase, meeting fatigue, where's that being coined from? So there's research on that?
Yeah, there's research, and it's simple research though, and it's like with anything, isn't it? When you look at the research behind that, right, when we go into a meeting, right, there's different ways we all communicate. So I'm very kinesthetic. I'm a hand, I like to think, I like to have a whiteboard so I can draw pictures. So I really struggle in these meetings because I like to be more physical, if you like. Whereas some people like to be more auditory, don't they? And then you've got your visual learners. So the challenge you've got over these period is auditory. So you're waiting to speak. So yeah, it's a challenge.
Have you held Andy's Man Club meetings over the internet? Have you held them?
Yes. So the interesting bit. So originally, when I got involved in Andy's Man Club, some like 3 years ago now, is I had an IT company, like I mentioned, and we specialise in Google G Suite for business. And one of that part is we can give it away. I wanted to give the services away free to a charity, and it was my wife when we was away on holiday who found Andy's Man Club. And the whole idea was I was going to give it tools so it could communicate and collaborate. Now, run that forward when I got there, and this will tell you a bit of a story in terms of me sort of changing my full career. I got there and they told me they stat about 1 man every 2 hours, and also our region being 40% higher. What they asked me to do was run a club in Hull on a Monday night at 7 o'clock. Now, James, you're all over the world and you're here, there, everywhere. I was back then. Asking me to be in Hull at 7 o'clock on a Monday when I'm meant to be running a global business was now impossible. But as I've got a great wife who's fantastic. I remember ringing her and she said, driving back on a Wednesday night from Halifax at 11 o'clock, how did the meeting go? Not great. They don't want none of my business consultancy or any of the IT. They want me to run a club on a Monday night. And she said, well, what did you say? I said, no, I can't do it. I ain't got time. I'm here, there, everywhere. I said, it was a real weird meeting anyway. I said, it's just odd, I got a feeling like they didn't like me because it was just a real weird meeting. And what it was, they'd started to set up other clubs and it wasn't growing organically because everybody who was coming in was trying to do something more than what Andy's Man Club wanted. It was so simple as the idea, and everyone wanted to do more than what the idea was. And they thought I was just another one coming in with all these ideas. But as I'm driving back, Luke rang me, who runs it, and we just hit it off. He's like a brother from another mother, as we'd call it. And what I said was, I'll put him in some contacts with a few people. I can help get a space, but I can't run it. I won't have time. I'm not in the country half the time. And I remember my wife speaking to me, and she said, you can't offer a charity 8 hours of your time a month, and just because what they want don't fit into your schedule, you can't say no. The world don't work like that. You're either doing it or you're not. And she absolutely called me out. She said, you reckon you're this director, you reckon you're all this, make it happen, basically. So that's what I did. I started on this Man Club Hull, started doing the club, but what we started to realise really quick, I was just blown away that opening the doors and asking 5 questions, and believe this or not, guys, I don't talk, I listen. I ask the questions, and I do share myself when it's my turn, but the real weird thing in the club is you ask 5 questions, and the job is we have a ball, and we pass the ball, and your job, James, would be to answer the first question. And if you don't answer the question, I'll ask you to pass me the ball back, and I'll say, look, this is the question. If you don't want to answer it, don't answer it, just pass the ball. But that is the question. And if you go off topic, I'd go, that is the question. And the questions are sort of set up, and I can share it on here, is they're sort of like leading questions. So what's one positive from your week? Now, straight away, they've probably never been asked that question again. Second one, how's your week been? They've probably never been asked that again. Third question, and the big one, anything to get off your chest. And now, I've been sat in that room and I have heard some of the most harrowing things, but also some of the most courageous things in that question. But from people who we all know, professional sportsmen, businessmen, you name it, there's someone from one walk of life. And what I found so endearing and so special is when someone turns up at Andy's Man Club, we're not really interested in your name. We want to give you a bro, have a cup of tea, come in, get off your tech, sit down, and we ask some really deep and meaningful questions, and we listen. And I think once you get on a level with someone like that and you start seeing the impact it makes, it's amazing. But then back to your original question, like I answered, is that then starts throwing up from my business side of safeguarding. Some of the things we was hearing was absolutely, just we're not trained to deal with it. And I think for me, when I started to step into being a trustee was, I always remember being out with my wife and having a meal with my wife. And we used to have we still got a Facebook page now, but you'll see that if you go on Andy's Man Club page and you message in, you get an automatic response with Samaritans and other, proper services who can help, because we're not experts. And I think the big challenge, and Luke shares about this as well on a complete different scale to what I had it, is, again, I'm sat there and I've got people messaging me at 9, 10, 11, 12 o'clock on a Friday or Saturday night saying they're going to take their own life. And I'm out with my wife, and all of a sudden, it starts making you look at what are we doing with this charity and where are we going? And then all of a sudden, back to keeping it real. I have no problem asking awkward questions. So that's where I started to say, well, hold on a minute. What's my job then as a facilitator? It's to open the doors on a Monday night. Okay, I get that. What else is my job? Right, okay. Getting Facebook messages, that's not my job, is it? And what are you doing, safeguard me? No, right. Let's ban Facebook Messenger from everyone. And everyone's like, what? No, let's ban it. We don't need it. If it's about asking the question and talking on a Monday night, why do we need Facebook Messenger? We don't need it. And we started doing things like that and making tough calls. But ultimately, I think that's why it's flourished so much, because we are doing it for the right reasons. We are doing it for the bit that we're really all missing at the minute, that social interaction and that deep, meaningful conversations.
What 3 things, Leon, would you say that you've learned? And we've clearly touched on a number of areas to do with the topic, the subject of suicide. But what have you learned? 3 things have you learned about yourself during this journey? Because good or bad, because there must have been some stuff that you've questioned yourself, or that you've stepped up to a way different level that you would never have imagined before.
Yeah, I think what I realised is, again, sitting there on a Monday night and being consistent for 3 years, never missing a club, and sharing yourself. And one of the most important things is the role of a facilitator is to share the self. And I've always had coaching and other bits, but I've never really, how's your week been? And really asking them questions. And what I started to really realise was the business I was in, it had just grown to like just something that we never expected. And working globally, working with some of your biggest brands, you name a brand was working in Harrods, Selfridges, working with your Kurt Geigers, and working with these massive brands. And in construction and retail, it's just relentless. It's just relentless, just relentless. And I did start a tech company because the whole idea was, fairy tale, and you know these fairy tales, James. I work in this business and I'm going to pivot into my IT company. They're going to retire and it's all happy days. And I got a lot of respect, for Tristan and the team there at Batchcar. I got taught how to run a business. I always look at, my dad was always an entrepreneur, running pubs and different things and like in different ways, always like a window cleaner and all different things. But what it taught me, I did a talk on success, and it was, we talked about this, didn't we? My Mayweather ticket.
Yeah, do you want to give us some insight into that?
This is just a reminder about not being a dick. Just super. And I share it with my good friend Alex. I'll call him out on it. I mean, look at the suit he had on as well, the pair of us, right? We set fire.
Wait, let's have a look at that again. Let's have a look.
Atrocious, look at the pair of us. Silver suit.
That is. For the podcast listeners, that's just as shiny a silver suit as you can ever imagine.
And it's just, we was laughing about this, and me and him have been on a real big journey, me and Alex, on it. We want to grow these businesses, and you start growing these businesses, and then all of a sudden, you start chasing the cars, the watches, all the rest of it. We're flying to Vegas to see Mayweather, we're buying tickets that just cost ridiculous amounts of money, and you think that's cool, and all you're doing really, and it's super simple, and I see this at the Man Club, I see it personally, is rather than keeping it real, rather wrapping ourselves up in decorations, aren't we? Or we're doing distractions, which is drink, drugs, womanizing, you name it, fighting, whatever it is. And I was in that bracket. I'd only ever been a carpenter. I became really good at, because I'm dyslexic, I became really good at technology because I can't do anything that normal people can do. I can't spell, I can't read, I can't think. So I had to use technology to leverage. But because I wasn't prepared to be vulnerable, I started putting people around me who was better than me. And obviously that's why things get better, isn't it, right? But I think what I learned massively was asking myself what I really wanted. What does Leon McQuade actually want? How's Leon McQuade's week really been? Where's my life going to go? What that search for meaning, and we were sharing it again with James. My dad passed away at this time as well, a massive influence. And it's when you get kicked in the nuts and you get a reality check, you see life in a complete different context, and it's beautiful when you see it. But ultimately, I had this notion of success, and because my dad had always been a hard-working guy, I remember him taking me over County Road flyover in his wheelbarrow with his ladders on. I remember him buying his first brand new BMW when he was running 3 pubs in Leeds. So I'd seen everything, and he always worked, no matter what. But I always looked at success differently in different businesses. So I had this different thing. I can't fail, because he was in a period when the pub trade failed. Banned smoking. We had to recuperate. We had to come back. And I used to always say to him when I started learning more about business, being a dick, I was like, you should have refinanced. He could have done this. He could have done that. Just been an absolute dick. And what really struck me when he died, he had heart failure, but he still works with heart failure, bless him. But he stubbed his toe. He got gangrene. He died within 6 weeks, right? And when you watch something like that happen, I was working in this big construction business at the time, and it was my own fault, not the business's fault. But I thought I needed to be involved in all parts of it. I was leading with some big brands. I just signed some big deals with a big company called Philip Lim Global Brand, and I'm pricing the job in Dove House while he's there. I'm making decisions on cash flow, all this stuff, and it was just relentless. And it was only after he'd passed, and I had my son as well. Just my son was just born at 1, and I started to ask myself. Someone said, get a list and put 3 columns on it. And he said, in column 1, I want you to ask what you want to experience in life. Experience. I want to take my kids to school. But at first, I thought, well, I want a watch, I want a Rolex, I want this, I want all this. But experience, what do I want to experience? I want to take my kids to school. And I remember writing that down, and it just seemed me taking my kids to school just seemed so far from where I was. And it hit me in that moment, the number one thing that my dad had always done, he'd always took me to school. He'd always pick me up. He'd always built a business around me, and he'd had hold of me every time, and it just like hit me like a train. Like, what the fucking hell are you doing? So I just sacked myself and went and followed my heart. But
you literally sacked yourself.
Yeah, I just resigned. I got me a shareholder, and it was like, but I look at it, and we can always do things different, can't we? I wish I'd done things different. But when you're in business, I don't know contracts, I don't know legals. I just know that and once you get that far in, and you want to say no, it's hard to say no in it. But then I think, you know, we talk about putting your own mask on. When you're really honest with yourself, and you say, well, actually, I don't want this, and you say no, you've got to do it. And you know, breakups aren't hard, are they? And I still, you know, it's one of them. It's just one of them, isn't it?
And that realised. Oh, sorry, Phil.
I was going to say, so you created a framework based on these 3 columns. The first column being, what do you want to experience? Yeah. What were the other 2 columns?
Yeah, great questions. So the next column was, right, if I want to experience them things, what do I need to learn to grow? What skills do I need so I can experience that? And this is how I got involved in Andy's Man Club, because the last column was, if you're the guy who's experiencing all these things and you've learned all this stuff, what are you going to give back to the world? And I put Andy, I'm going to give 8 hours to charity. And the charity, and I said to my wife, go find me a charity that you think needs 8 hours of my time. And she found Andy's Man Club. So that's how I got involved in Andy's Man Club. I think the main point on that is, when you watch people walk in and be vulnerable like I'd seen there, and I also was dealing with grief myself of losing, I lost a leader, you know, my number one leader, the one guy who I could go to no matter any problem, and you lose him. But I was still going to work that same day. I'm still doing this. I didn't grieve. I didn't talk about it. And I think more needs to be done for us blokes to talk about our emotions and be okay with making mistakes. Be okay with actually realising that we can be dicks. There's nothing wrong with being a dick, as long as you go back and put it right. We've got to go through that to be better human beings, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
So did we cover the third column there?
Give back.
Give back.
Give back.
Interesting.
My video dropped.
Interesting that your answers, certainly the answers that you've revealed to us, they revolve around time, not money.
Yeah, and that was the guy who coached me on that. That's been my biggest game changer. And I do it every year in my little journal. First page, it's like super. I'll show you. I've had it in every journal. Because I'm dyslexic, I force myself to write. And it's just like, I have one of these journals for the year, and I just write my goals on it in one column. And it's so simple. You know, what do you want to experience? It's super simple.
Yeah. So you plan out the year based on experiences then?
Yeah.
Wow. And so you've got this framework and no job, so to speak. Is that?
I did, because I'd set up an IT company.
Right.
Because my passion was IT, specialising in Google Apps, and again, you know, unfortunately that failed. You know, in the end, I did fail. You know, and I had to pivot out of that. But I think it's interesting. We climbed Kilimanjaro with Andy's Man Club, and it was like a real pivotal time for me. In that there was just so much uncertainty. You know, going from a very business uncertainty, all different things. And when I started climbing that, it's quite symbolic. There's a saying out when you climb the mountain called poly poly. I don't know if you've ever heard of this. So when you climb the mountain, you've got to acclimatise. And I've always struggled whenever I get stressed, I eat and I balloon in weight. It's just my go-to thing. It's my go-to vice. And again, I was stressed, you know, trying to navigate in business what I'm doing. And I thought, I can't train for this mountain. I ain't got time. I was researching it, like, you know, we do, don't we? Like to get a bit of facts. And it was all about, it's not about how fast you get up there. It's about your body acclimatising to the altitude. And it's weird, the goal. And it said, the longer you have to acclimatise, the better you're going to be up there with your blood, right? So I was like, right, okay. And then I get there and the guide said, oh, we've got this saying called poly poly. So I said, oh, what's that? He said, everyone's always trying to race to the top of this mountain. To get up there, they get mountain sickness. They got to get chopped off. It's serious. You can die. So he said, so if you ever hear any of the guys saying poly poly, it's slowly. So I thought, right, I got this, nailed this. I'm not going to be the fastest, but I can definitely be the slowest. So my goal every day, every single day, every time we set off was I wanted my guide within the first hour to tell me to go faster, faster. Like super simple, let's reverse it. And that's what we did. And what it taught me was just to really look at life in a different way. You know, you can appreciate, like now we're all in lockdown and it's a challenge, but money, you know, if you haven't got £1, it's no different than having 100 grand, is it? It's the same problem. And we're bloody resilient things as human beings. We like to collaborate. We find a way to make it happen, don't we? Or someone will help us. There's good people out there.
Yeah. Leon, I'd like to you tapped into the pig wrestling podcast, and it was very quick, but I was like, I'm coming back to that one. So tell us about that. I mean, that first of all, why pig wrestling podcast? I mean, that is some title.
Yeah, so there's a great book. As you can tell, I'm an avid reader. Never used to be, but I just love books.
Yeah, I'm feeling out of place here.
Yeah, but
I have a couple.
Yeah,
couple of comics.
Books never let you down, do they? They never let you down.
Yeah.
Do they, Phil? They don't let you down, do they, book?
Always there.
Always there. Yeah, you can always rely on them. But I got given a book called The Pig Wrestling. Every business owner needs to read it. Kids need to read it. My kids have read it. And it's basically, you know, like you have like SWOT analysis, like a tool to do something, a tool. It's a tool for problem solving. And it's super, super simple. It's by Mark Bowden. And the pig represents the problem, right? And we all wrestle problems. But what the book teaches you through some real nice, simple fables is that if you're wrestling a pig, that you're not solving the problem. You shouldn't wrestle pigs. Pigs need to be in a pig pen. And you need to look at the pen. And it gives you some tools of how you look at problems from a different way. And it talks about, there's a real good story in it where there's a French town of Hanoi. And the French town of Hanoi they have biblical levels of rats, right? So the pig they was wrestling was trying to, you know, kill more rats. So the council come together and they was looking at the people, the places, the politics, and they're trying to solve this problem. And they said, right, it's real simple. We need more rat catchers, you know, because the plague's getting up and all this stuff. I think, and so they're trying to do this. So they said, we can't employ any more rat catchers. So they came up with an ingenious idea. What we'll do is, a dead rat back then was called a rat pellet. We'll pay the citizens for every rat pellet they catch. So then, Phil, what do you think happened to the population of rats in Hanoi? Did it go up or did it go down?
Yeah, it goes up.
Because the entrepreneurial people of Hanoi started breeding
rats. Yeah.
Right. So when you look at that problem and the pig pen's got a bucket of water, so you scrub your thinking up and you really look at it and you take it, the pig's wearing a frame, you know, picture frame. You've got to be really careful the way you frame a problem and also the pig trough, what you feed the pig. Because when you go back and you look at the people, the places, the politics, the population had tripled, right? What they had a problem was they needed more bin collectors, not rat killers. They needed more sanitary, you know, for the water. And there was a tackling the problem different. And I read that book and I was like, wow, if we can teach more people about how to solve problems, I don't think there's any bigger problem that we need to fix than people taking their own life. It just should not happen. You know, we've seen it with coronavirus. We're talking about 20,000 people that have died from coronavirus. It's absolutely shocking. On the same note, though, we've got one man every 2 hours in the UK, and women as well. Why aren't we going mental about that as well? You know, and it's making sure that we are banging that drum and we are putting support in there and we are fixing this problem. And then where the podcast came from is, like right now I'm rocking Andy's Man Club and that's all cool. But because I want to do more in the city of Hull and I want to do more bits, and because we can't scale anything else other than Andy's Man Club and we don't need to because it's just beautiful and it works, I always meet interesting people and I want to be careful what I say as Andy's Man Club because I'm representing a family and everything. I've got to be really respectful. I've also got my own IT business. I've got to be respectful of that. But if I'm meeting, like we now run it with Joe Kent, who's a suicide prevention lead for our region, and me and Joe have had some real big debates about, you know, it used to be that you don't talk suicide. And I used to just say, well, your policy, the stats are going up every year. Your full policy is not work. It doesn't work. You know, I'm not a genius at all, right? But you're saying don't talk suicide, don't talk about it at all, but the stats are going up. They've now flipped that, and we do need to talk it out. But think where the podcast comes from is we get real interesting people and we just have real good debates of how they solve problems.
All right, okay. How long's the podcast been running? How long have you done it?
It's been running about 6-7 months.
Brilliant.
And for our audience, Leon, we've got many people who are either thinking about going into the podcasting world or have just stepped into it. So can you give us some insight into, he's shaking his head here for our listeners out there who can't see that. But can you give our audience some insight into what that looked like to starting up? So what you were thinking, some decisions, and also equipment as well. You know, did you think it was going to be more complicated than what it is, or did you think it was going to be easier to set up than what it's actually turned out to be?
Because I have ideas and I expect people to understand what my ideas are, and no one ever does. I thought it was really simple. I think the challenge is it's like anything in it. It comes down to quality and getting it set up. But it's trying to keep it simple, so it just depends on it. I mean, there's some great tools out there for podcasting. But the big one is the mics. You need to get good mics. That's the big one. Mm-hmm. And then we had like a little mixer for your compression. Where we're struggling now at the moment, because we're doing it digitally, it's a lot harder to edit, I think, when you're taking it from a video and you're ripping it. I think when you sample it at source straight from an amp and you do your compressions on good old track, mixers, it's super, super simple. I think when you go digital, it just makes it a bit more complicated, I would say. But I don't know what you guys say. I mean, for me, I think more podcasts need to be done because we need to share more knowledge, is for me. So I'd implore anyone, don't think too much about it. Get yourself on Anchor, just start and get it better. We had a big problem on our podcast this week when we was ripping the music from the Zoom meetings for the podcast, where the echo's just been awful on like the last 3 weeks. But we realised when it was going up, it was a compression issue. So it wasn't like that on the machine, but when it's going up, it's just killing it. But I think to keep it real and keep going at it, I think.
You've come you've come into Zoom having set up prior to using this platform, whereas we've been different. We've been procrastinating for a year basically now. I mean, we could go into it. We've covered this over many episodes, but we didn't have the available time. We didn't have the right equipment. What was the route we're going to go down? What was the strategy? I mean, it wasn't until that was probably March last year that we started talking about setting one up. And we'd been thinking about it as individuals before then. And it wasn't until I was in Morocco, I think it was early November, and I made a point, literally going out with this same booklet, sitting down at a cafe in a corner, just going, right, I'm just going to focus for the next hour or two and think and strategize what we're going to do and how we do it. And you know what? And by doing that, I thought, well, yeah, we can't put a nice looking intro together until we've interviewed people, because once we interview people and we've got that footage, then we can take that and create a nice intro. So it's like straight away, I was like, well, of course that makes sense now. Whereas we've been stalling because what does the intro look like? We don't have any footage. You're like, right, bingo. Now that's shifted things up. And this, once this hit, we were just like, we're just going to do it now. We're just going to crack on and make it go. And we're nearly 40 episodes in now, and the amount that we've learned as individuals, as a team, together as hosts, as with our team behind us as well, that do a sterling job on a daily basis to our guests. I mean, the learning that's generated from this is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And it's accountability. It's essentially every day we've got similar time that we've organised to meet up with someone. Like you were saying there, Monday night at a certain time. That's you committed to that, and these are times of uncertainty right now. So to have a time that you commit to and you're accountable for, I think is a healthy thing to do when so many plates are spinning and are often crashing down right now, when things are out of our control.
I think you make a real key point, because all we've done, because Paul runs it with me, who runs Andy's Man Club now, and all we did, kept it real simple, was we book in our diary. We record our podcasts between 10 and 2 o'clock on a Thursday. That's the slots. And what we did was, even when we didn't have guests, because no one wanted to talk to us at first, was we'd record them ourselves. And we just record them. And we just made sure, and we still have it in our diary now. And then, even like, I don't know, it's different, isn't it, depending where you're going with it. Like, my business partner at first was like, well, why are we doing a podcast? But then, interestingly, the bar side of it is we get to just meet loads of interesting people. It's cool. It's really cool. And the different side of it, I like our podcast on the other side because the questions I ask, we've got like 10 structured questions. Where I know you don't like having structured questions. I like giving the question because I'm a little dyslexic brain, but I like to uncover like the tools and the tactics that people are using. And it's just brilliant. Yeah. Learning's brilliant, isn't it?
So if someone's going to dive into your podcast after this show, which episode? Give us an episode that's one of your favourites. That's one of those like, oh yeah.
I've got too many, but one of my favourites. We've got Hull FC's chaplain, Reverend Tony Cotson. He runs Ezel Road. The Fisherman's Wives, everyone like that, and he's come to Andy's Man Club since the start. And what was interesting with Tony is, he drives a car. How cool is this for a reverend? So he's in his gear with his black and whites, and he loves Hull FC. His son is actually Hull FC coach, Andy Last now as well. His son-in-law, and he turns up with his car and it says Hull FC Red 1. That's just cool on its own as well, isn't it? So he's Hull FC chaplain. But he came because he heard about the work he was doing in the community to bring other people. But then he's just got like such a captivating voice and so many interesting stories. He's like just the coolest guy ever. And it's a bit like when you're on a rugby field, like Martin Jono was a good rugby player, right? So when you're in a bit of a rut, you'd always pass it to Jono and he'd get you out of trouble, right? Sometimes in Andy's Man Club, there might be a point at times where we might be having an open chat and someone might share something or whatever, and you just know if you pass the ball to Tony, he comes out with this story that you just like, like when you have them sleep stories and you're listening to like, Stephen Fry, you could just listen to him for hours. He's just incredible. So definitely him. He's incredible. We've had loads of cool people on. I think the interesting bit, we ask a question, what's a lesson from a failure of yours? And that question so I think everyone's interested, really.
With flipping that, and it'd be unfair to give a name or maybe an exact specific time, but what episode have you felt has maybe bombed, or a moment, and why? So give an insight into why. Was it a certain question or something you were feeling and it didn't go well? We've talked about a great episode example there. Have you let's flip that around. Something that you found challenging that you
I mean, the flip side, which is like anything, innit? No one likes the sound of their own voice. Nobody. And I ain't shut up on it for ages, have I? So you'd be surprised. But no one likes it. So the challenge is, when you listen to it back, I don't know, I always think it can be better, but it's just getting okay with it being okay, and it'll just develop as it is, isn't it? I think the word bomb, we make a big thing like we don't edit because I think it's more fun.
Yeah. I think there's a big thing that you need to get the expectation out of your head that that one day you'll hear your own voice and you'll just go, oh, I sound amazing. It will never happen. You will always at best be able to tolerate the sound of your own voice. And that's a win.
I don't think that'll happen.
Leon, you said that you record on a Thursday. Is that covering 4 hours between 10 and 2? Is that one episode or is that four?
We try and get 3 episodes in.
Okay, right.
And I think the other
that's good insight, is because people who are either thinking of going into podcasting or starting a podcast might think, well, you don't have to do it live. Far from it. You can record it and then put it out whenever you want. But likewise, your podcast might be 2 minutes. It might be 20 minutes or 2 hours. So you need to have a think about that as a time frame. But on a Sunday, if you want to do a half-hour podcast a week, on a Sunday you record 4. That's 2 hours. Give some extra time to say hello to your guests, line things up, and thank them afterwards. So to get a month's worth of podcast content, if you're doing a half-an-hour episode, might take you 2.5 hours on a Sunday to record.
The reason because I'm a big fan of scheduling my diary with different blocks of time where I do different tasks. And I think for me, it was all about when we first started to do it, we just started doing one. And I was like, well, there's like an anxiety that we need to get the next one done. And we originally wanted to do it live as well. And then when you just ask the question, what's the purpose of the podcast? The purpose of the podcast is to share knowledge. Does it matter if it's live? No. So get over yourself and it'll go out when it's ready. And then I think the other thing is, it's different stands. the reason I wanted to add a little bit of structure to ours with the questions, even though they go off differently, and this is just a tip I read, is we can then go back and chop them podcasts up and say, right, so we always ask what's 1 to 3 books you've read. So we can do we can use existing content and go chop it up and say, right, the top 10 books on the podcast this year was, and do different things like that. So I think just trying to be creative and trying to reuse your content in different ways to add more value, because not everyone's going to want to listen to all the questions. Some people might want to listen to certain bits. So I'd look at it that way, really.
Yeah, it's a great tip.
Well, we're going to have to cut this short again. We're probably just going to have to say this on every episode now. If we had 3 hours, it'd still be cut short, wouldn't it? Because you've got that much to talk about, and you're like, okay, well, let's steer towards that or steer towards that. And it just doesn't, there's that much positivity to share and knowledge as you've touched on there. But where can people find you, Leon? Where can people find Andy's Man Club?
So Andy's Man Club's the easiest one. So just look on Facebook for Andy's Man Club. And we've got Andy's Man Club Hull, or just the main Andy's Man Club. So just jump on there and drop it a like. Find out about me and my own business at Think Cloud, so www.think-cloud.co.uk. And yeah, just mainly check out the podcast, Pig Wrestling Podcast. You can find that on Anchor, Spotify, iTunes, to name a few.
Fantastic. Well, it's very rare. Well, every guest that we've had on, it's not a coincidence that it's not even glass half full. It's often glass overflowing situation and personalities that we have on. And I think it's safe to say if we're doing this in each other's presence right now, it'd be overflowing that much with you, Leon, that we'd filling out, it'd be just having to mop up whilst we talk to you. You are clearly full of passion and positivity, and the insight that you've given us and our audience today, it's inspirational. I mean, it's being selfish here. I'm going to come away from this, and I'm already drawing things for business for myself. So this reaches thousands of people. And thank you on behalf of our audience as well, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks, Phil, as well. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thanks for your time, Leon. It's been great.
Cool. And likewise, I want to get you two booked on so I can learn more about you two. So we're going to return the favour.
Should we have a different dress code next time? We've gone with caps this time.
I've joined in, haven't I? We've gone with caps, so I think we should go with caps. I think what we'll do...
Floral theme. What about a floral theme?
Yeah, I'm
that
down
could be
for that.
Pretty sweet. Daisy chains and...
Whatever you want. All good.
Hey, we'll take you up on that offer, Leon. No problem. Absolute pleasure. We'll look forward to joining you on your podcast soon.
Yeah.
Right. Cheers, fellas.
That's great. Thanks, Leon. Cheers, mate.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, mate.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Business Lockdown.
Please comment, like, share and subscribe to help build our global community.
We look forward to seeing you all soon.